Look in my eyes. What do you see? The cult of personality. I know your anger. I know your dreams. I've been everything you want to be. I'm the cult of personality. Community Solutions Podcast, back with you. Episode 55.
Is it?
It is.
No, we just did 55.
Or did we do 55? 56?
It's one of them.
Yeah, well, that was anticlimactic.
It was anticlimactic, but you know what?
What?
I know that song from somewhere. I don't know who sings it, but the Cult of Personality, I've heard that.
Living Color.
Living Color?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that a TV show?
That was in Living Color.
Oh.
Yeah. No.
I would have never guessed that.
Right.
But I have heard that before.
Oh, good band. Good musicians, I'll tell you. Oh, it's feeling like spring today.
Is it? Well, yeah, I guess so. I mean, to me, till opening day happens, it's not quite spring.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be throwing 100 pitches today. It's not that warm.
Well, I could throw 125 probably. I don't. You know me. I don't submit to the modern baseball rules.
Right.
So throw till you're done throwing.
Yeah. Well, if it's warmer, I think I would be loose enough to throw quite a few today. No.
Look, these ball players probably have pitching mounds in their basements.
That's true.
They can warm up.
Well,
there.
that's different. I mean, I wouldn't want to be out on a field today. It's a little cold for that.
Sally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I'll be living in South Texas by the time I'm 55. Just won't be able to handle it anymore. I'll have a second house in Belize or something. I don't know.
That's nuts. Well, if you're going to move to Texas, live there 183 days out of the year, so you don't have to pay any income taxes.
Well, there you go. That's the key, right?
Yeah, that's what people live in Florida do. They come up north from May to September. Go back to the warm weather where you better weather and no taxes.
Can't argue with that.
I'll still stay here, but
I will too. I'm dumb. So I don't know any better. I won't go anywhere. We have too much work to do here. That's the problem.
Well, I think wherever we go, there's too much work to do.
Well, that's true. I guess I'm not ready to start up somewhere else yet. But I tell you, with the rate of things and the way that they're going here in Minnesota, and I don't mean that just in a negative way. I mean also looking at some of the impact that we've been able to have so far. I want to see this work completed here, I mean, not saying we'll never move on and include a greater land mass and under what we do, but, I don't want to leave a job half done.
No, but Minnesota, as with every state and all that, is getting swallowed up, I think, by forces larger than it, unfortunately.
Right.
Which leads us into, I didn't really want to get into it right away, I mean, we usually BS for 10 minutes or so, but this is too awful to hold off any longer.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing.
First off,
yes.
Let me ask a question. Now, what we're talking about today is these, and there's a whole bunch of them. I mean, there was recently a summit on climate change.
Right.
Sorry, the word's not warming, so you can't say global warming anymore.
Right.
So we've adopted to the new language. Recently in Edmonton, Canada.
Yes.
Okay. Now I have a question before we even get into this. Over 800 people came to this conference from, I supposedly, all over the world. Now, we have no guest list here because they won't release one. It's like the Bilderbergs.
Well,
I mean, we don't know who's
800
there.
800's a pretty big list.
Yeah, 800. I mean, scientists, supposedly. And who else? Researchers. I'm sure there's celebrities there. Librarians, whoever else.
Librarians, yes.
At this conference. I want to know, how do they all get there?
I don't know.
No. Jay, stick with me.
Yeah.
Stick with me. In today's world, you could Skype something like this and save the environment. I bet they all flew in first class. on their jets and all that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Rented a car probably and drove around. And I'm just kind of curious. While these folks, this is Al Gore to a new level here,
right?
That they all fly in. Now you could have a meeting, you could have a conference. You and I have done it on our laptops before.
Yeah.
Well, why can't these doorknobs do the same thing?
Well, it's just more fun to get together, I guess. And I know they didn't drive; they Ubered. That's much better, right?
Because two of them got together and Ubered together, so they're reducing their carbon footprint, even though everything would die if we didn't have carbon.
Yeah, I think the problem is it's those jerks over in Prince Edward Island. That is the secret cabal right there.
Could be
New Brunswick.
Here's
tell you what.
Let me say something.
Okay,
Canada. Okay, a country that has 3 weeks of summer.
Mm-hmm.
A country that is a sparsely populated place.
Yep.
There's not that many. It's the second largest country landmass wise.
Right.
And it is very cold there. What crisis is going on in Canada?
Well, being a northern Minnesota guy, I consider
myself that too.
It's I'm almost like an honorary Canadian, living up there, and I don't see a ton of stuff going on up there. But,
you frickin' Canuck.
There's lots of trees and wildlife, and
my Dr. Phil impersonation is better than your Canada impersonation.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Just so you know that.
Okay, but I don't know. I mean, yeah, they have big cities, I guess, just like we do. I mean, they're pretty spread out. You've got a handful of them.
To me, outside of Toronto and Montreal, they don't have big cities the way we would define them in the U.S.
I like Saskatoon. That's fun to say.
Saskatoon, okay. But, I mean, I can name about 10 Canadian cities.
Yes.
Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver.
Ottawa.
Ottawa's another big one. I mean, Winnipeg. There's like a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
And everything else is some sparsely wilderness. So, I mean, how could somebody live by Hudson Bay and think there's a climate crisis going on?
Well, the icebergs are melting.
They're instead of being 30 below, they're 29.5 below. So we've been up half a degree according to the climate change people. That's what's happened. So the iceberg at that rate, by the time it's 2731 will be at zero. So, I mean, if that's a crisis, I mean, anyway. So they actually had 2 conferences up there. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason we're bringing this up, why are we talking about stuff that happened in Canada? Well, the theme behind this Mayor's Summit and this climate change science, I hate it when they use the word science, conference, is that cities need to take the lead in so-called climate change initiatives. Now, we all know what that's code words for.
Yes.
It's code words for a war on your car and getting you out of the country, out of the suburbs, out of small towns, and into big urban centers where you can be controlled.
Yep. High-density housing, mixed-use development.
Blah, blah. Same things we rattle
transit,
off week after week after week.
Mm-hmm.
So they have this shindig up here in Edmonton, and it's kind of hosted by this little punk, this Don Iveson, who is the mayor of Edmonton.
Now, that's
younger than me.
That's this specific conference, or the summit, which is part of the larger Edmonton conference with the IPCC, and we'll get into that as well in a little bit. But
this guy's younger than me. Jay, this is depressing.
Wow, you got upstaged. When
he first ran for, now, tell me if you haven't heard all this before.
Okay.
The 2007 Edmonton City Council Ward 5. Let me tell you what
Hey, at least they're in wards.
Well, that's true. I guess you probably kind of have to be in a city that big.
Yeah, that's true.
His campaign stressed improved transit, densification of housing. He called for a tax on plastic bags, reduction of pesticide use. Is that a problem in Edmonton?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we got lots of mosquitoes here in Minnesota, so that's not that, it's a little colder, but it's not, I don't know.
Property tax increases. He was tired of his city cheaping out. Well, that's a nice way to think of other people's money. More progressive tax schemes.
I love the word schemes
that
in government.
Better match household impact. What the hell is that?
Have you ever heard of a scheme and had it been like a positive experience?
Not really, but this guy must be a good salesman because when he was elected governor with advocating his support of LGBTQ rights, what does that have to do with being mayor?
I don't know. Higher taxes?
But he won with 61.88% of the vote.
Well, of course he did because it's Canada.
Oh, well.
I mean, that's Canada. It's Europe Junior.
If you Anyhow, so that's the loon that is kind of is the head honch. He's kind of the young stud of the climate movement, I guess now.
I don't know, or at least he was the star of this gala, this shindig that they threw. So. Yeah.
But he had a big invitational speak. Hey, he's younger than me. He's got more gray hair than me. Look at that.
Wow.
Doing that climate change stuff, boy, that must take the wind out of you a little bit.
Take some years off your life.
All right. The big themes. Now, I want to say something, too.
Yeah.
It is not easy to get info on this. Like we said, I don't know who's meeting here. I don't know. They don't even have a list of what policies they're endorsing.
Right. And you're talking specifically about the mayor's event here, right?
Yes, and then leading into the conference the next couple of days.
Right. So this happened March 5th through the 7th.
That's the conference. The mayor's thing happened on the 3rd and 4th.
Yep. Okay.
Trust me, we're neck deep in this stuff.
Yeah. There's so much here. This Edmonton mayor, I mean, he's quoted as saying, "I have long believed in the power of cities to tackle some of the greatest challenges of our time. This is especially true when it comes to confronting both the causes and impacts of climate change. We hope you decide to join us for this important meeting in Edmonton, but it's an invitation-only event."
Well, I mean, that's to control who's invited, control who's...
they didn't want Mark Corrin showing up.
Right. They wanted... to make sure that everybody, it's a predetermined outcome.
Right.
They all know what they're going to say. They just sat around a room and said, how are we going to say it? Mm-hmm. How do we sell
it's about messaging. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's totally, how do we sell this? It's kind of like a campaign. You sit in a room and you say, okay, how do we take this message and put it into words like hope and change? Or make America great again? I mean, it's the branding. The branding. Right. You and I talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
So we don't know who was there. Not sure what happened. But there's like a media blackout on it. And it's funny, where's the coverage of this? You see any coverage of this on PMSNBC?
Oh, no. Well, I don't watch any of that.
Well, I don't either.
But, I was neck deep in Twitter during this whole thing, and I was tweeting a bunch of stuff out. Yeah, so I saw coverage of it. From them, their tweets. Right. Yeah. But I didn't see any third party,
I'm sure they loved your tweets.
Yeah. Oh boy, did they love my tweets. I'm sure that they did.
Where do they get these organizations? I mean, I'm going to move on to the conference just a little bit. Put on by the IPCC. Mm-hmm. You got the alphabet soup here of NGOs. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate. Who's on that? Can I apply to be on that?
You should try. I would like to see how that works out.
And once again, you've got 800 municipal representatives, scientists, members of academia, people who've never held a private sector job in their life, and sharing the latest scientific research and inspire global and regional action within cities. So that's interesting. We're going to have a regional action within cities.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit contradictory there.
Well, you get enough cities together, I guess it affects a region. Maybe that's what they're hoping. But yeah, it's what we've...
Yeah, but they know one city does one thing.
Right.
They're all copycats.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I interrupted. You had a deep thought.
No, I really didn't. I mean, it's the same thing that we've always talked about, where now, because you can't get something through at the federal level or the state level, they're doing an end run around to the cities to get it in the foundation of our framework of how we do government. And then as these people come up from the city level to the state level to the federal level, they're going to affect the same change at those levels when they get there.
Yeah, what do you want what about this Iveson character runs for something bigger in 2 years or 4 years or something?
Maybe he's the future Justin Trudeau.
No, thank you.
No, thank you is correct.
Partners and organizers. Hey, once again, by the way, I am reading this from Edmonton's website. This is not even third party. Edmonton.ca. Partners and organizers. Future Earth. C40. I thought that was a kind of dynamite, wasn't it?
C40 is a collection of 40 cities that want to be involved in climate action together. Yep.
City of Edmonton. Cities Alliance. ICLEI, our buddies on ICLEI.
Oh, good. The
IPCC. Sustainable Development Solutions Network. I thought sustainable development was a conspiracy plot, that the Southern Poverty Law Center thinks that people like you and I made up.
Wow. I wonder if the Sustainable Development Solutions Network is like the community solutions would be like the Justice League, and the Sustainable Development Solutions Network would be like the Legion of Doom, right? Huh. Not the good Legion of Doom.
Right, not the Road Warriors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
United Cities and Local Governments, UCLG. They've been neck deep in a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I bet they have.
UN Habitat, UN Environment, World Climate Research Programming. Oh, I think that's program.
That's just that's program.
That's like spelling center with an E on the end of it. It's not Centre.
No, it's not.
So their acronym is WKRP. No, WCRP. I'm sorry, not WKRP. I ain't Johnny Fever here, okay? Or as I call him, the guy from Head of the Class.
Yes.
Or the scientist on Flight of the Navigator.
Yes.
All right, so that's going on. Now, again, let's tie all this, and Jay, let's tie all this into the things we talk about every day.
Mm-hmm.
We all know what's going to come out of this. What's going to come out of this is people have too much freedom.
Yes.
We can't have all this freedom going around.
Oh boy, that's
you can't
dangerous.
get whatever kind of bag you want to carry something out that somebody invented. Can't drive a car. Can only work and shop in a closed environment. You don't need more than 1,000 square feet to live. Nobody needs more than that.
Why would you?
Right. So, we got to tell you what kind of light bulb to put in your house. I mean, but they are so good at coming up with ways to say this stuff.
Yeah.
Aren't they? I have to give credit where credit is due, as much as it bothers me. But they are good at framing something to where if you're against it,
yeah.
okay, well, then you don't care about clean water. You want dirty water.
Right.
You want dirty air. You want, I want cigarette smoke up my nose 24 hours a day. I mean, they're good at. I've always said this. Our side doesn't frame arguments right.
No.
They do a good job of that.
Yep.
And when you've got look at the power brokers they've got. From all of this money from cities, from the UN, from these liberal philanthropists, and I guarantee you, George Soros, Bill Gates, people like that have got their, maybe not them specifically, but people like that are throwing money around at this crap. Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, these people are far more well-funded than any oil company or any, natural gas company. Those people have to go out and make a profit.
Oh, yeah.
They got to pay employees, okay? These people just sit around and, I mean, they're more powerful. This is more powerful than any president, than any leader of any country.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, and they seem to be able to carry sway at the national level to some degree, not enough to get the stuff passed, but at least to be able to get their foot in the door. And like I say, that will change as some of these cities that have given themselves over to this, their farm team happens to come up through the ranks and infiltrates at the county, state, federal level.
Right. So in other words, and you and I had a little chat off the air about, is this a treaty? Is joining something like this, because folks, if you're unaware, and judging by the constitutional knowledge of this country, most people in Washington and everywhere else are unaware that the United States Senate is the only place where a treaty can be entered.
Right.
Right? I mean, Minnesota can't enter into a treaty with Alberta to do something.
Right.
Yet these cities, counties, and whatever are entering international agreements to impose or restrict, or however you want to word it, our life. I don't know how to put it into words. I would argue they're doing it to restrict our freedom. Now, I didn't vote for this. I didn't vote for some international conference to come in here and, tell me where I can drive or if I can drive or where I have to live or work or shop. But that's kind of what's going on here.
Right. Well, under international law, a treaty is any legally binding agreement between nations.
Okay, but again, define legally binding. Because if the United States enters a treaty with Canada,
and
one side violates it, well, what's the other side going to do? Hey, we got a piece of paper that says you can't do that. Well, we're going to do it anyway.
Right.
So a treaty really is just sort of a good faith. It's not a contract the way it would be in a court. You and I enter in a contract, a judge can enforce it. Two countries enter into a treaty, and who enforces that except the Army?
Well, I mean, there's that, or for those that think the international courts hold any kind of weight, and sometimes
they hold whatever weight they give them. It's behind your chair.
Okay. So, I don't know. I mean, you look at it, and the international court system, I mean, it's whatever weight you give it. International law, does it supersede national law? That's up to us, I guess. And
no, not according to our Constitution. It doesn't.
Right. It's tough. But going back to, is this a treaty? Is this not a treaty? When you look at... there's a compact of mayors, and it was people from the compact of mayors that attended this invitation-only event.
We think,
just because it was kind of hosted by them as well.
Bloomberg and Sung Yuk Polk, or whatever his name is. The guy from Ickley, I can't think of it. But, Park Sun-woo Woo Sun Park.
Something like that. But so the Global Covenant of Mayors and Mayor Don Iverson are the ones that hosted this mayor's event. And part of being part of the global contract of mayors, step one is you have to make a commitment. You have to sign something saying that you're going to agree to follow the rest of these, the 4 steps.
Now, one of the things that is often said to why international stuff like Ickley is not a treaty. Well, it's not voluntary. It is voluntary.
Right.
You don't have to do anything, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you sign a contract that you're going to do something, a contract is a variation of a treaty.
Right.
And what? So the mayor signs a contract? Here, mayor, you got Ditzy Betty Hodges or whoever's there now. I don't even know. Jacob Fries or something.
Yeah.
They can just sign a contract. Of course, Minneapolis is already there.
Right.
But, I mean,
Yeah, Minneapolis is part
Kathy
of the compact
Hempkin
of
can
cities.
go sign a contract that says, hey, I want to be a part of this and send it off?
According to this. Yeah.
Better not tell her.
But, I mean, yeah, it says a mayor may
Don't tell Jeff
register.
Lundy either.
Oh, boy. A mayor may register on either of the compact standard reporting platforms, the Carbon with two N's because it's fancy, I guess, Carbon Climate Registry, or CDP, or email a letter of intent to info. I'm not going to give out the rest of that in case there's any of those mayors happening to listen to us. But following the submission, a city will be contacted by the compact support team. At that point, a city within 1 year, this is what it says, within 1 year, a mayor must, not should or can, a mayor must assess the current impacts of climate change to his or her city. This is called taking inventory. So to do so, the city must, 1, build and complete a community-wide GHG, that's greenhouse gas inventory, with a breakdown of emissions for buildings and transport sectors using the GPC standard, and 2, identify climate hazards, and 3, report on both via the CDP or Carbon Climate Registry questionnaires.
Well, that doesn't sound like it's free. That sounds like a lot of time and work.
And it's going to cost an employee hours. It's going to probably cost some maybe not yet in materials, but that's coming. And it does not sound voluntary.
And it probably requires an outside study of some kind, because
I would imagine so.
If you have to use their standards, you probably need some sort of feasibility study to look at that by a consulting group.
Right.
The finance department would have to look at that.
Because I'm going to tell you, the park and rec director isn't going to go out and measure carbon.
Yeah, I want to see that ruler.
You're going to have to bring in an outside group to take care of this.
You're going to have to. I mean, you're going to have to bring in somebody to analyze that.
Right.
And what are they analyzing? Are they analyzing city vehicles? Is it, how many cars drive through in a day? I mean, is it...
it's probably a lot of it.
Dump trucks? They have too many dump trucks, so of course that needs to be collectivized. I'm sure that's part of it. Is it complete streets? Is it bike lanes?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's whatever kinds of emissions.
It's whatever they want to make it up to be.
Well, and that's it. I mean, they've got
who's accountable for these standards.
Here's the thing. Step 3 is target. Create reduction targets.
I went there yesterday.
Yeah. Establish a system of measurement. So within 2 years, the registered city must update its greenhouse gas inventory to also include a breakdown of emissions from waste sector, set a target to reduce its GHG emissions, conduct a climate change vulnerability assessment consistent with compact guidance, and report in its chosen platform.
Now, Jay, just for people like Herb Carneal used to say, if you're scoring at home,
yes.
What website are you on, by the way, just to let folks know that to follow along?
Well, this one's kind of...
are you on the global page? Just so we footnote where we're getting this stuff.
Well, this is coming... let me see if there's an easy way to do this. I went to the Global Covenant of Mayors website, which is globalcovenantofmayors.org. And then once I went there, I had gone to about, and then went down. Was it on that first link for Global Covenant? I think it was. And then within this website, there is a list of all of these things. It's not super easy to find because the actual website for this PDF that I'm looking at is like data.bloomberg.com.
Okay, but it's on that website. That's the big thing, just so people know that they also have a board of directors. Who elected them? I don't know. I don't know who Marco Savaki is. Of course, Mike Bloomberg, Christina Figures, Gregor Robertson. Boy, that's got to be Canadian. Vancouver. Mohammed Safkhani. Park Woon Soon, of course, our buddy from ICLEI is on there. Yamin Yahuda Haraway from India. I don't know how to pronounce these names.
Oh, boy.
Fun with it. So they've got this board of directors, they've got a founders council, a global secretariat. And again, they've got a lot of people on board, like a lot of these things do, including, a lot of these things also have private companies backing. Yeah. Usually it's people getting some sort of government benefit, if you will. The Carbon Climate Registry, CDP, they're all partners. Cities Alliance, World Bank, which is probably funding part of this.
Probably.
World Resources Institute, which helped write Agenda 21. Institute for Sustainable Development, the World Wildlife Foundation, which to me, the WWF is still a wrestling company, and so on and so forth. So there's... and VeoliaNorthAmerica.com, which is some sort of environmental company. I'm not sure what they do.
Huh. So it's got all these people backing it. And this compact, I mean, there were 4 steps. I didn't get to step 4. It's establish an action plan. So within 3 years, a city's strategic action plan must show how it will deliver on the commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to climate change. So you notice for each step, they must. This is a binding agreement. The way it's written, how do you take that any other way? It doesn't sound voluntary at all. Now, I don't know if it has any teeth. If somebody doesn't do it, do they get kicked out of the compact? What is it? But there is some sort of retribution, I'm sure, if people don't follow them. You must.
Well, I mean, again, to me, that sounds like a contract. That sounds like a treaty.
It sounds like a treaty to me, too.
Can't enter into.
You got me. That for some reason, how many did we say that there were? 800?
Well, there's 144 cities in the ICPP from the United States.
Right.
I don't know how many are in the Global Compact of Mayors. I'm sure it's the usual big cities, big urban centers.
It's not just that, though. I mean, on the Global Covenant of Mayors website, they do have a list of all of the cities that... I mean, if you look at their map, Europe looks like it's underwater because it's all blue. The rest of the globe, it's a little more spread out than that. Part of that is just because
the European Union probably endorsed it.
Probably.
And so they probably, basically the countries gave up their sovereignty to that. So
it's funny, though. It goes over and stops right about where Russia starts, and then there's like nothing.
I'm not surprised at that.
Yeah.
Treaty with Russia's useless anyway.
Same thing, that whole area over there. You look at Russia and China, Mongolia, Uzbekistan, all of that. I mean, none of them are involved.
Of course not. That's where the industrialists go to pollute. They go pollute over there now.
Right. But... I mean, look at all these places. These are places involved. I'm just looking at the first page. We got Adams County, Alameda County, Albany, I assume Albany, New York. Alton, United States here, Anchorage, Alaska, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Apopka. That's kind of fun to say, too. Apopka. Arlington, Ashland, I wonder if that's
Texas.
Okay, that's not Wisconsin.
Oh.
I doubt it.
Probably
Texas. Aspen, Colorado, Atlanta, Augusta, Richmond County, Austin, Texas, Baltimore, Beaverton, Bellingham, Benicia, Berkeley, no surprise there, Bethlehem, Birmingham, Alabama.
Where Jesus was born?
No, United States. Maybe
Birmingham?
Pennsylvania.
Did you say Birmingham?
Birmingham, Alabama. Nashville is in this thing. Minneapolis is in this thing. Brownsville, Texas.
About like Chicago. And
Chicago, yeah.
I'm sure there isn't anything stupid there, Ed.
So you can page through this. You can see that all these U.S. Boston...
Right, and I would say the social impact of this is almost bigger because you're going to end up... in clusters. Remember, the goal of the globalists is to get us all into high-density urban centers so we can be controlled.
Yeah.
If you take away my car, you've taken away a lot of my freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you take away you take away my ability to go shop wherever I want.
Right.
You take away my ability to go work wherever I want. If I don't have a car, I can't do that. So that's part of what they're trying to do. Now, of course, again, they're smart enough not to say that. You know, they're not. Occasionally, they're dumb and say that, but usually the controlled stuff that comes out of these doesn't come out and say, well, we'd like to take your car away.
We want to make it safer for pedestrians. We want 0 pedestrian deaths. And we will do that using traffic calming methods and bike lanes. And
well, how do you do that in a city like Edmonton where, like I said, there's 3 weeks of summer?
Doesn't matter. I mean, if you look at the last picture that I put out on the Instagram account, it looks like there are 2 streets side by side in Hopkins. Now, this is downtown Hopkins. I mean, they have that downtown district along Main Street. This doesn't even go along Main Street, but it looks like there are 2 roads side by side. There's even like a dotted line in the middle. And no, this one is for biking and walking over on the left, and on the right, it's the one for driving. But this thing doesn't even go along Main Street. It just gets you in and out of downtown, and it's mostly cleared, but it's, you know, so are we spending city resources then on cleaning this bike and walking path? And
no,
nobody was using it.
They got free money from somebody to build it. That's what probably happened.
Oh, yeah, there's a grant from somewhere. But, I mean, this is exactly what we're talking about.
Right. It's the same policies that are going to come our way. They might be worded differently, but it will be affordable housing, high density, mixed use. This is what they're trying to put everywhere, all over the world. And by entering into these things and getting requirements and all that stuff, I mean, that means it's going to happen.
Right.
If you live in one of these cities, these policies will happen. Now, I want to know, too, what is the impact of switching a fleet at a city the size of Minneapolis? I mean, what is the impact of that?
Just switching a fleet?
I mean, a fleet of police cars, fire trucks.
I would assume that the goal is to make them all electric at some point. Because, I mean, look at what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. I mean, where they're redoing that whole BRT line, the C line that goes up to Brooklyn Center from downtown Minneapolis. Right. It's all going to be electric buses. Now, they're actually starting on that now.
What if I poured water on them? Would they
short circuit?
Yeah, would they short circuit? I don't know. Quit going?
I don't know if that would work.
They can't run those in the rain, right? Electric buses.
I think they're okay on the outside.
You got what? The A line, the B line, the C line, the D line.
Is that it?
I know they have A through D. I don't know which one is which.
D is the one that goes out or is going to go out along the Gateway Corridor. Okay. C is the one that goes up to Brooklyn Center from downtown.
That's C, okay. So it goes to the Brooklyn Center, right by the Walmart there or whatever. That's where it ends, across the street from there?
Across the street, yeah. Over by the bank and the
Social Security office and that?
Yeah. What is it? Bass Lake Road and...
It's right between Shingle Creek and Brooklyn
Boulevard,
somewhere.
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't know that was the C line. All right. Well, so that's where the electric bus is going.
That's where it's going. Yep. Oh, this is good stuff, isn't it?
That just makes me really happy.
But here's the thing, though. I mean, they come at us from so many ways. You don't, in Minnesota, even have to join this global covenant of mayors. It's important to know about because, like we said, there are a ton of U.S. cities that have registered. 144 belong to the global covenant of cities from the United States. Mm-hmm. And it's cities of different sizes. It's some counties, but you don't necessarily have to belong to that. But it's this conglomeration of people that belong to this organization, belong to Minnesota Green Step Cities, that belong to other organizations like that.
So 600 in Ickley.
Right. And some of them probably are the same, like I think Minneapolis is in both.
CompleteStreets.org. You name it. They're part of it.
They're coming at you at the city level from a multitude of directions to try and get this stuff into place. And how easy would it be, and we were talking about this before the show, that if you belong to Minnesota Green Step Cities and you needed some sort of measurement device, to say, for this compact of mayors, you have to inventory, you have to target, and then you have to have a plan. Well, if you're moving into step 4 or 5 of being a Minnesota Green Step City, you have to have the metrics in place to be able to enforce a certain number of the steps that you have, or the actions that you have taken to get to step 3 or 4. Or 4 or 5, and by that,
so if you're at New Hope level,
if you're at New Hope level, which is crazy, but but there are a lot of cities that are at 1 or, well, not at 1, but they're like at level 2, and they're getting close to being in level 3, which takes 70 actions to be able to get into level 3. I mean, that's quite a few. I mean, that's not like a casual, hey,
if you did 70 actions in 2 years, that's more than 1 action per council meeting.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about how many things that is. And again,
right.
I think another reason that they're targeting cities and counties as opposed, and this is, I don't want to say it's relatively new, because Agenda 21 and ICLEI was always aimed at local government from the beginning. But I think the cities taking the lead on this is relatively new.
Yes.
The last 10 years or so, maybe, something like that. And I think they're doing it because they know it falls by the wayside. They know that you put in something in Congress, you put in something in a state legislature, and there's so many steps it takes to become law.
Yeah.
There's think about it at the Minnesota legislature, Jay. Let's say Minnesota wanted to implement a carbon tax. Okay, it's not a 4-3 vote at a city council.
No.
It starts in a House committee and then a Senate committee, and then the bills get amended and there's public hearings and it all gets flushed out. Then there's a conference committee. Then you have a veto or a signature by a governor. Then you have a judicial review. Then it could take, look how long it took to get Sunday liquor sales. It was like 4 different legislatures, actual legislatures that looked at that. I think that movement started quite a while. I mean, really picked up steam in like 2012, maybe.
Yeah.
And just last year was when it got implemented. This stuff can take a while. And I think they know it's easier to slip things through. Mm-hmm. And bring the, most cities are part-time. They know that.
Yeah.
They just sell the city administrator on it or something of that sort. It's talked about at a work session, and then they're passing it a week later.
Yeah.
And that's the danger here in all this stuff, is that it goes through without the scrutiny that it would get at a different level.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's that. You're going to people maybe who are a little less learned. I don't want to say they're dumb. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is
they're not on top of every piece of legislation like a congressman. It's not their full-time job.
No, Congress, you're going to have some sort of a committee that's their full-time job to look into that stuff, and they hire staffers to be able to go.
They got
and
lawyers to look through it.
Yeah, we're at the city level. It's like, hey, that sounds good, and they usually do just get a sales piece, and that's all they get. And they don't have the resources at their beck and call to be able to research all of this. It's like, hey, that sounds good. The other thing about it, though, is that you are, as an activist, if you can get it in widespread at the city level, it's harder to do, but it's a lot harder to uproot it later if you get it done. Mm-hmm. To get that back out when you're that diversified, at the federal level, you pass a law, you can rescind a law, you can repeal it with one swift action. The state level, kind of the same thing. I mean, you might have to go to a number of different states to get it done, but it's not like cities. I mean, in Minnesota, we have 853 cities. Imagine having to go through 853 cities to get something repealed. How long that would take. Add into that townships, add into counties. You're looking at a pretty Herculean task to be able to uproot something.
But that's why they're doing it like this, so opposition groups can't shoot at all these targets, pardon the pun.
Right.
So again, beware of this crap, and that this stuff. I mean, we've said this week after week, and all we do with shows like this is validate it. That this stuff is coming near you. And again, notice the secretive nature of this. Notice the lack of transparency, that you don't know who's there, who's saying what. There's no media coverage of this. You don't have any idea. Heck, the U.S. government could be sending people there for all we know.
Right.
The FTA or the Department on Urban and Housing Development, they probably get a report from these groups. Why not?
Right.
I'm sure congressmen are probably signed on. I'm sure they contribute, to a certain as much as an outside group can because of campaign laws. Most of them do it via third party, but that's mostly thanks to our stupid campaign laws to begin with.
Right. And there are some articles out there. I mean, if you kind of scroll through our Twitter feed, I mean, after the conferences, came out, that cities and scientific community unite to plan an ambitious new climate change agenda. City leaders, urbanists, and scientific researchers have agreed to work closely together to fight climate change. So an aggressive new agenda tells me that they're going to be pushing things out, that you're going to be seeing new buzzwords, new phrases coming out in the next, I would imagine over the next year or two, and you're going to be seeing model legislation that is going to be going in all over the place at the city level. What those changes are.
Yeah, and aggressive means, they're going to run you over with this stuff.
Right.
I mean, they're not even hiding it. I mean, what if a candidate for office said, I'm going to aggressively try to push my agenda on you? Boy, people would red flag them.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not a conspiracy, ladies and gentlemen. These people are naked.
Yeah. I mean, part of what it looks like they need is they think there's a specific gap in the limited literature that the IPCC can assess to provide the knowledge needed for tackling the major challenges posed by climate change. So they need more literature, and otherwise they need propaganda to be able to set up their sales structure, to be able to get the buy-in from cities.
I see. So they need, like you said, they need a new sales pitch.
They need a new sales pitch.
They need a Himmler or not a Himmler, Goebbels. They need a Goebbels to come along and do this.
The other things that they agreed upon: inclusion and social transformation. How many have we talked? The Thrive 2040 plan for the Met Council is all about inclusion and equity, and we see that throughout a lot of these articles.
Social engineering.
Where you're right, you're talking about getting people who are poor out of urban environments into suburban environments, creating the pretext for high-density housing and transit to run through all of that, which then gives you the ability, and walkability and bikeability, which gives you the ability to restrict the amount of traffic through traffic calming measures and so on and so forth.
And the stupidity of trying to get groups to move into certain places. I mean, let's call it what it is. They're trying to get Democratic voters out of the urban areas and into the suburbs.
Right.
That's really the goal, is to go to Plymouth, go to Wayzata, go to Minnetonka. How do we get them to vote more liberal? Well, we take our voters from Minneapolis and supplant them out there.
Exactly. That's the plan.
Yeah. And how dumb is it to try to force people to move up who aren't ready to move up yet? You aren't doing them any favors. That's when they get into debt. I mean, that's when they're in over their head.
Right.
People have to move up naturally. They have to. How many stories have you heard? I remember when I was a kid, and even when I graduated high school, some of my friends, not me, but some of my friends were like the first person in their family to go to college.
Yeah.
Like their father worked for Ford. The grandpa was on a farm, which kind of is close to my family. I'd be skipping one generation.
Right.
Because my mom and dad went to college, and so did my uncle. But, I mean, and my Uncle Jack was a teacher, my dad's brother. But, I mean, I shouldn't say was. He's still around. Just retired. But, So naturally, that has happened. Naturally, if you look at demographics, for example, where I went to high school, Cooper, where your kids went to high school, they've changed naturally, and it's changed by force. But naturally, it's changed too.
Right.
So that has been happening, but it's not at a fast enough rate for the social engineers.
Right. And then I saw an article in this last week where because people are getting out of the urban into the suburban environments, they're all of a sudden calling the people who then are moving further out racist because they don't want to mix. And that's not it. I mean, if people are naturally moving from urban to suburban, do you think maybe that the people that are middle-class suburbanites might be moving into upper middle-class suburban? And, hey, I want a little more house. I want a little more room.
Maybe a newer house, maybe?
It doesn't mean that it's racism.
I think, again, that's the social engineers' way of trying to get their policies through, is to assume that race is the problem. I think it's the policies that come with it. One of the reasons, and I've said this before, I never wanted to live in Crystal long term. And the reason was transit.
Yeah.
The plans that they had is part of why I ran for office in the first place. I didn't see myself there in 15, 20 years the way the plans were laid out.
Right. I mean, you changed the community. It's no longer a place you want to live, so you go find a place that you want to live. It's the market, the free market at work.
Right, but it's also happened naturally anyway, because take my mom, for example. Now, she grew up in South Minneapolis.
Okay.
Went to Roosevelt High School. And South Minneapolis, my grandfather worked in Minneapolis. But then her and my dad moved to the first or second ring suburbs.
Right.
At that time, the further out suburbs weren't developed. I'm talking in the 70s.
Right.
When I was born. Then her kids, I'll use my sister as an example, she moved out to Champlin. Now, that was a natural progression that happened over a couple of generations.
Right.
Nothing, no race was involved. No,
right.
I mean, it's just that's where the new places were. That's where the new, if you wanted newer housing, if you wanted to live maybe in a quieter area, that's what you did. And now the next generation is moving to Elk River.
Yeah.
Or they're moving to Rogers or Big Lake or Buffalo or Hanover or St. Michael.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between that and what happened with my mom and what happened with my grandfather? And I bet I could go into any urban area, and where do you see the growth? In the suburbs.
Right.
Particularly outer suburbs.
Right.
And you see it all over the Twin Cities, whether that's Lakeville, whether that's, Blaine or Hugo or Lino Lakes on the northeast side.
Yeah.
Almost all the way up to Forest Lake now, Yeah. And also people aren't all working in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Like my father worked in Minneapolis.
Right.
So it made sense for us to live in a first or second ring suburb. Now, had he worked in, Rogers, we might have moved out closer there. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
So I think again, the social engineers have to come up with scare tactics, have to come up with ways to shame you into supporting them. And I think calling you a racist is a cop-out. It's a coward's way out. They are trying to spread liberalism everywhere.
Yeah.
And they are not doing these minorities any favors.
No, they are not. But look at like a quote from Smart Growth America. It's possible to change your streets quickly. It's not expensive. It can provide immediate benefits, and it can be quite popular. You just need to reimagine your streets. They're hidden in plain sight. And you look at the picture of this lady giving a presentation, and they have what's an upside-down triangle. So the point is going down. So it looks like an upside-down food pyramid or whatever, right? It's all in green, of course. The top level, the widest, biggest level, pedestrians. And then,
Jay, where are you getting this from?
Well, this is straight from smartgrowthamerica.org. This is actually a Twitter post that they made, but there's a link and all that kind of stuff. You can find that by scrolling through our Twitter feed.
Scroll through dumb growth, smart growth.
Yeah, this was back on 3/13 that they posted this. And so the top level, we need the most pedestrians on our streets. Next, slightly less cyclists. Next, quite a bit less public transit. And then least of all, cars. Down at the bottom of the pyramid, just kind of wedge it in. Well, I guess we'll...
Yeah, they're probably going, damn it. Got to have a few cars, damn it.
I don't know.
I'm surprised they don't have ride share or toll booths or...
that's probably under public transit.
Min pass.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it is crazy, you know. But you look at it, and what can we do? I mean, maybe this is a great thing. So they had this conference. They all got together. 800 people or whatever got together. 144 members of the global covenant of cities or mayors, the mayor's compact. You have the Minnesota Green Step cities, of which there's about 120 members. 600 members of ICLEI. All this works together. They're all coming at you from every direction. What can we do just as people that are concerned about this overreach, this stretch of it's not even government, and some of it's government, a lot of it's special interest. There's money. There's
I think
pressure.
Very little of it is government. It's your government getting pressured by big money NGOs. And your local government getting pressured by the federal government, getting pressured by the UN, getting pressured by groups with good sounding names and good pictures,
yeah,
and that kind of stuff. That's really, I think, what it's getting people.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of scary that they flat out say, without using the word propaganda, we need to improve our propaganda. But what can we do? We need to be informed about these issues, not only the facts, but also what they're doing, so that we're able to spot it. Again, I think that's only a partial solution, because if we just turn into consumers of the media, trying to figure out what are they saying, what's really going on, are we any better than if we sit home and watch the news or read the newspaper and don't do anything?
No, I think being informed is step one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unfortunately. I think ultimately, sounding the alarm is number one. I mean, you have to, your city doesn't have to be a part of this to be implementing this stuff too. You don't need to be part of Complete Streets to implement Complete Streets.
No, your county might just come along and say, hey, why don't we do a road diet here? Or why don't we put in a roundabout? Here's some money.
Again, cities have to be able to say no to that, though. And if you don't have the right people to say no, and if you don't have the right people at the county, that never happens.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all of those steps to take place. I mean, I think, again, you guys see stuff like this in your neighborhood. You see stuff like this in your comprehensive plan. You see these buzzwords that we've talked about: road diet, walking and biking. What do they call it? Active living. You see these code words. Understand what it means. It means it's a war on your car.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no other way to put it other than that.
Right. And we know that in other places they are seriously trying to reduce lot sizes so that housing could be more compact. All along these transportation corridors that they're building.
Which are very big, by the way. A transportation corridor is not small.
No. all sorts of transit-oriented development being built. So you have, again, high-density housing within, 6 blocks, a half a mile of
Drive through St. Louis Park and you'll see what it looks like.
Oh, yeah.
Or Wayzata.
Oh, boy.
And there's no transit out there, but you'll see what it looks like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Planning for it.
Yeah. So what do you do with that? I mean, when you hear those things, you got to be involved. You got to get to your city. Not only you can watch the city council meetings online. I mean, they put them online. Just watch them online at your leisure. But get to the work sessions. Those are the ones where they make the decisions. That's where they talk about this stuff openly, because in most cities, they don't record it. They don't put it out there for you to. There are some and some that surprise me that actually put the work sessions out there, but most of them don't. And by being involved with those meetings, you're most likely not allowed to speak, but you can take notes. You can go home and you can blog about it. You can do a podcast on Anchor, which is an app on your phone that'll allow you just to start a podcast that you can do on a daily basis, just 5-10 minutes. Here's what I observe. Be a citizen reporter is one thing you can do. Another thing, get on a commission, and especially when you're talking about a lot of this environmental stuff that's coming. The Environmental Quality Commission is a big one. Your Planning Commission is a big one. Also, there are things you can probably do from a charter commission if you're a charter city to be able to put things in place where you say, hey, we're not going to sign on to agreements like this as a city. There are things that you can do from a commission standpoint.
Yeah, and I would add, too, that could be written in city code if you are not a charter city.
Right.
You can write in city code that you are not going to join third-party groups or not going to pay third-party groups. You can pass legislation to make that happen.
Right. So write up a sample ordinance and talk with one of your city council people about introducing that. That is another option if you know you have someone that's friendly to you, and that may flush out some of the people that are not friendly to you and the community doesn't know any better.
Yeah, or don't know anything to begin with.
Right.
So, folks, we've given you some interesting things to chew on. Go to these websites. Take a look for yourself. At what's said and what's coming to a city near you. The war to take the sub out of suburb is fully on, and if you want your suburb to stay the way it is, you've got to fight things like high-density housing, transit, TOD, mixed use. It's all the precursor. It's all the excuse to change the feel of your city. It doesn't have to change. It right. really doesn't. There's some cities that look the same for 100 years.
Yeah.
So there's no reason that it has to. Cities need to be in charge of themselves and not have some global bigwigs trying to put a one-size-fits-all policy everywhere. We know how much that does not work. It does not work in public schools. It does not work. It doesn't work anywhere.
Since our inception as a nation, self-determination has been one of our key values. And I believe in self-determination even at the city level, where a city determines what kind of city it wants to be. If it wants to be now, that is within a certain framework. There are certain things that federal government, handles. I don't believe
the Constitution.
The Constitution outlines here's where the powers of the federal government are, where they stop. That's where states and cities can take over and determine what kind of state, what kind of city they want to be.
And the state has a constitution, too, that will redefine that a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, so that's good stuff on this Global Mayors Conference. Jay, you want to get a hold of us? You want to find us? You want to see us on all the places in social media? Run through it?
We're all over the place at COMM Solutions MN, and you can find us out there. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, as well. That is our email address, commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That's how you can find our blog, commsolutionsmn.com. Share this stuff. Get it out there because people don't know. You guys have no idea. We speak all over the place, and we go and we talk to people, and they understand it's bad, but they don't understand how bad. You know, they don't understand that the other side is as far down the road as they are, and that it is time to stand up and do something. That might not mean run for office, and it might. You know, it might mean start a blog. It might mean start a podcast. It might mean take pictures and put it out there on social media. It might mean get on a commission. It might mean help with a campaign. There's so many things that you can do. But we are at a point in American history where if you don't stand up and do something, if you are a net consumer rather than a net contributor, that we are in real danger of losing what we have. And our ability for self-determination will not exist. I know that sounds like a huge statement to make. Like, that overgeneralize a little more, Jason Bradley. No, I am serious. So find us on social media, and if you want to run for something, hey, we do consulting with prospective candidates all the time. We'll sit down for a little one-on-one. We'll trust me that the strategy that we can bring to how you can win at your city is going to be invaluable to you, because you're going to be able to avoid mistakes. You're going to be able to cut down the learning curve, and it's going to give you advantage head and shoulders above your competition.
All right. I agree.
Yeah.
Ditto. With that, that's a wrap for episode 55 or 56. I can't remember which one.
I think it's 56. I think you're right.
Jay, you always sign us off.
That's true. So there you go. You got more knowledge than you bargained for today. So with that, Minnesota, we love you. It's time for you to get to work. Let me